Live. All right. Welcome, Facebook family. Once again, we're here on a Wednesday, 6 o'clock. We're talking about generational wealth. We have a great guest on our panel tonight. I'm so eager to get started. We got a lot to talk about. A lot of times in our community, we talk about, well, we don't have fair legal representation. Well, we want to be a platform to where we can cover everything from talking about generational wealth, how we're going to get to the bag, how we're going to protect the bag. Now we're going to talk about legally how we're going to be able to be financially wealthy. We got some great questions tonight. Today, I am celebrated. This guy helped me when I was a lone student at Indiana State University at Sanderson Hall. He was one of the first guys who I met. He was one of the first guys who reached out to me and said, "Hey, Cepeda," he's been a mentor to me. He said, "Hey, Cepeda, you got to get to the books. Partying is cool, everything is good, but you got to get to the books." And I can truly say that this man has truly been an inspiration to me. I've watched him over the years. He actually is about his business. He didn't have a problem with telling me, "Cepeda, you're wrong," or getting in my face and saying, "Hey," when I was a college student, say, "Hey, you got to get it right." And so he has always been an inspiration to me, and it's such an honor to have him on. He's also a member of the greatest fraternity ever, Phi Beta Sigma. He was the one who introduced me to the Phi Beta, to the whole fraternity world, which changed my life. So without any further ado, I want to give credit to attorney, okay, Corey Scott. Corey, kind of let us know a little bit about yourself. Kind of let me know a little bit about what you do. And we got some questions for you. We loaded with questions today. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, first of all, Cepeda, man, thank you so much for having me on. It's really an honor and a privilege to be on your platform and to get a chance to speak with the community about the very important topic of legally protecting ourselves and looking out for our community. As you mentioned, my name is Corey Scott. I am primarily a criminal defense attorney, as well as I do some things in bankruptcy and a few things on the family law side as well. I have now been practicing for approximately 19 years, all here in Marion County. And so I primarily work here in Marion County in Indianapolis, but I do also do work in some of the surrounding counties and/or different areas of the state as well. So I am always delighted, though, to just to share information with the community, because so many times in my line of work, I see situations to where if only people had the information, they could have had a totally different outcome and situation when it comes to dealing with the courts and dealing with legal matters. So certainly appreciate you, man, and I'm really proud of what you're doing as far as educating our people. We know that people perish, for the lack of knowledge, and so knowledge is everything, man. So I am very proud of what you're doing, and certainly, I take a peek every now and again. You send me the different banners and the guests that you have on, so I know that you're working it, man. I just really appreciate you, and I just count it all joy to be here with you this evening.
So without any further ado, Corey, like I said, he's taking it lightly. He's been an inspiration not only to me, but a lot of people who we know that graduated from Indiana State University. He was well known. He brought out a good topic. Knowledge is key. And we have to surround ourselves with people who makes us better. I often use a quote: "The cavalry ain't coming, ladies and gentlemen. The cavalry is not coming. The creek done rose and the levee has given way. It's up to us to save us." And so we have to sharpen one another. And so I'm not an island unto myself. I can't do this alone. So we have a lot of questions for Corey today, and we're going to get right into it. The cavalry ain't coming. The creek and rose, Corey, and the levee is giving way. It's up to us to save us now. So
Absolutely.
we cannot make no more excuses about why we're not in the game. There's no more reasons. I've talked to people on how to get to the money. I'm not selling y'all a bag of wolf tickets. I'm not giving y'all my opinion. I'm bringing in people that are professionally in the field. Okay, this is not me doing my own research. These are people who are actually practicing what they're doing. This is a craft. And guess what? Everybody who's been on this show has been in our community, haven't brought nobody in from outside. They have been in from our community, and they're talking about issues in our community. So one of the things that we're talking about today is, what is our legal rights, Corey, when we get pulled over? Tell us, what is our legal rights? What can we do when they have our hands out, they sent the sirens out in front of us, and we ain't done nothing, but we have that nerve issue when we get pulled over and we start vomiting at the mouth. What is our legal rights? I'm asking that question to the attorney.
Absolutely. First, before I get into that, though, I really love the analogy that you brought up about the creek and, us sort of being our own rescue. I will never forget, way back when we were in college, I was watching basketball series, my beloved Chicago Bulls at the time.
Oh, wow.
They were down, they were down in the series. And I remember distinctly that they were interviewing Phil Jackson and basically saying, what are you guys going to do? You guys are down. It's not really looking good for you guys. And I'll never forget his answer. This is what he told that reporter. He said, when your lifeboat is capsized, you have to become an active participant in your own rescue. You know what I mean? You have to become an active participant in your own rescue. And I bring that up because, if ever there was a community where our lifeboats have capsized and we're in the water fighting for our lives, it's certainly our community with all of the numbers. We don't have to go through all of the detailed numbers, but we know mass incarceration is on the rise. We're losing people left and right to the system. So, it's certainly up to us to, be our own solution. But to your question, if you're pulled over and you're there and you're nervous, and, the first thing is, and I know it's very hard to say, certainly in the face of the legal headlines and seeing things that happen on the news with police and that type of thing, all of us, I know if on the way home tonight, I would be concerned as well. But the first thing is to try to see if you can, as best you can, figure out a way to just sort of settle down and calm yourself down and just really take a moment and pause to think. That's the first thing, because you certainly don't want to be in a situation to where you're nervous, and because you're nervous, you got a lot of excited energy and you're moving around a lot, because we know that alone can cause a serious problem, because sometimes, although, these police officers are fully armed, they're out there and they're scared to death as well. And so sometimes they're jumpy. If you move too quick or something like that, you have a problem. So the first thing is to try to see if you can calm your nerves and settle down. But secondly, you mentioned it perfectly. You talked about folks getting that, vomiting of the mouth and diarrhea of the mouth, running your mouth. You certainly cannot do that. You can't just start talking. You just can't start admitting things. So one of the things that you want to do, and you want to do this, of course, politely, you want to inquire as to the officer, excuse me, officer, can you tell me the reason why you pulled me over? That's the first thing, is to try to find out, because a lot of officers will just simply show up at the window, and say registration and that type of thing. They want your insurance and your registration and your license, and that's fine and well. But if you can, try to find out and establish why you're being pulled over. And this is important, number one, for you on the scene, but also at a later date. This is some information, valuable information, that your attorney might be able to use in your defense as to why you were pulled over in the first place. One of the things that Indiana courts have said is that from the time the police pull you over, they have just the amount of time that is necessary to handle that specific issue. So in other words, if you're pulled over because you got a bad plate or something like that,
Okay.
that's not something that's going to, take them a whole lot of time to deal with. They can make certain decisions about what they're going to do. They're going to issue a summons. You'll get a court date later or something like that. But that alone should not be a reason for them to hold you for hours on end and that type of thing. So that should be a very quick transaction.
Okay. When you say quick transaction, how long traditionally? I know you can't say specifically, but when you get pulled over, just say I'm driving, my plates are not updated, didn't know, pulled me over. I get pulled over. One cop car comes. 10 minutes later, I see two more cop cars. 5 minutes later, I see two more cop cars. So now I got about five cop cars behind me. And then about 2 minutes later, I see another one pull up.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your, what do we do in that? Because that makes anybody nervous.
No,
And
absolutely. Absolutely. And that really harkens back, Cepeda, to my first point is, that's the reason why you're pulled over is very important, because the reason why you're pulled over, that really literally frames the whole context. Because if you're only pulled over for that, you don't need all those officers. You're pulled over for that. You don't need those officers. You've complied. You've handed over your registrations and your driver's license. You're not causing an issue. You're not acting out of hand. You're not being disrespectful or combative or violent or anything like that. There's no reason for it. And so, again, that's, in that context, if that were to happen, that's something to where the attorney at a later date can tell a judge, listen, judge, my client was stopped. My client complied with all orders. My client was cooperative. He produced the information when it was requested, and all these other officers was just simply not necessary. That's one of those things to where they're trying to kill a fly with a sledgehammer. It's just too much. It's just not necessary. And so that goes to the reason why a judge may make certain decisions at a later date. So that's the reason why context is so very important.
wow. So y'all hear what he's saying. We do have legal rights because even though we might, be pulled over for whatever reason because we are in violation of the ability to drive when, things like that happen. But he's saying that you can't kill a fly with a sledgehammer. Now you can kill the fly with the sledgehammer, but that's over. That's overdoing it. So brothers and sisters, when we are in these areas and we're getting pulled over, right? He's telling us, stay calm. Don't get so panicky that we don't have any legal rights, right? And then that war is not fought at that particular point. Make sure you're very observant, stay calm, hey, comply, right? And then if there's anything that's going on, we can later talk to our attorney, okay? Observe it, 4 or 5, because a lot of times where I've seen it, go out driving down the street, there's 4 or 5 cop cars, and it's one person or a female or male that's one person, and you got 6 cop cars there. So we're not bashing police. We just want to know our rights, okay? Because police serve a good part of our community. We would have crime, 9 times over if we didn't have proper policing in our communities. But we don't want to be in a position where we're taken advantage of because we're trying to get help. So that's a good question. The next question that as I scan the horizon, Corey, that a lot of people want to know. We're gonna switch it up now, okay? A lot of people want to know.
Okay, before you do that, can I make a couple other things that I think are really critical to this first question, because I really think that if people observe this and they put these practices in place, it might save some lives. So the other thing, going back to the first question though, is you certainly want to stay calm. You certainly want to find out why you're being pulled over, but you want to make sure. You want to go ahead and light up the inside of the cabin of the car. And you want to just go ahead and place your hands where they're visible. Place your hand where they're visible and you're not moving. That way, that gives these officers reason to know that they're safe, they're secured, and everything is above board. You don't have anything to hide and that you're trying to be cooperative. Another thing that I will say in terms of planning, I mean, we plan for everything. We plan for, we planned last night for the opening of the NBA season. We had everything ready. We had the snacks
Lakers
ready.
lost.
Somebody's going to have a party this weekend. They're planning for that. But one of the things we don't plan for, and we should, is what if we are pulled over? So one of the things that you can do ahead of time, though, is to make certain that you know exactly where your documents are, the ones that you might have to get for the police. So it might be a good idea, depending on the makeup of the inside of your car, to have the things that you would need to gather for the police readily handy. Right at a place to where you can get to them very easy. You don't have to reach over for anything. Something that might be interpreted as, oh, he was reaching for a weapon and we did this or did that. I mean, I saw a gentleman in South Carolina to where he was stopped, he was calm, and the officer said, "Sir, could you please give me your license and your registration?" The guy went like this to get his stuff, and the cop shot 3 or 4 times, and the guy was compliant. So the other thing too is, even if you're told to do something, don't do it immediately. What you want to do is say, "Okay, officer," and then tell him what you're about to do. My information is in my glove box. But now, if you listen to what I just told you, you won't have to reach the glove box because you thought about this ahead of time, and you can just simply grab it without any, real exaggerated motion or anything. It's either there or it's right on the side of the door, or maybe it's on the visor or something like that. But wherever it is, you announce and tell the officer clearly, "My information is in my visor, officer. I am now about to reach and get my information. Is that okay?" Okay, so
Okay.
that way it's very clear. You've told them what you're going to do, and you're waiting for permission to actually do it. You've done it in a very respectful way. And then that gives away, it really prevents any confusion to where, again, an officer might be jumping and might, do something or discharge a weapon, all thinking that maybe you're trying to do something. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah. So he's kind of giving us a blueprint of being calm, but being calm and asking questions. A lot of times when you start to ask questions, it causes tension. But he's telling you what questions to ask. One, can I turn on my lights so that we can see? Okay. Two, can I get my registration? My hands is on my front, on my steering wheel, or on my front panel. Can I get my registration? Okay. Those are all type of things to de-escalate and actually promote the person who's right there in front of you. So these are good, solid things to create generational wealth, because when we die, when we get shot, like you said, it can cripple us. Policemen are trained to hit you in organs that can cause you to either destabilize or to can kill you if they feel like they're in harm's way. They're trained. So we got to be careful when we're talking about policemen and talking about security in our own community, because we've all experienced that. To where, like, when me and Corey once talked previously, he's like, it's amazing on how we can not even know our rights when we're in this society. We got to know what we can do and what we can't do. Asking an officer to, can I turn on the light so that we can both see, so you don't be offended? That's a good thing. Okay, that's de-escalating it. Asking him, hey, can I? Not I am getting ready to, but can I reach and get my registration because it's in my glove compartment or it's in my side pocket? Okay, those are things that we can do to de-escalate things in our community that can cause a problem. Because when we turn on the news, they're talking about homicide and drugs, and everything in our community is at an all-time high, but they're increasing the police staff. If you look and listen to the news, I think I was watching the news a couple nights ago. They're saying that, hey, they're increasing the police staff. So that means they're doing that for a reason. More policemen's out, crime should go down, but they're going to be pulling people over. So we want to make sure that we're not identified as the bad guy. So we're ready to switch it up a little bit, Corey, because I'm getting some questions. One of the questions that people are asking, what are my legal rights when it comes to bankruptcy? I know that bankruptcy is important, That's in my line of work, and we're talking about generational wealth and how you can keep that asset and your credit straight, and all those things. So they've heard my standpoint on it. From a legal standpoint, what can we do to save ourselves when it comes to bankruptcy, and what have you seen in bankruptcy?
I promise you, this is my last time going back to the first question.
The last time.
But you know, as the country preacher says, this is my final close. I'm really
Okay. We'll hold you to that one.
I'm really about to close this time. But just a couple of things that I would be remiss if I didn't tell the people this. So one of the other things that comes up all the time when people are stopped is, you know, even though you haven't done anything, even though you're actually, you know, you've given your registration, you've given your license, and everything checks out. Sometimes, you know, they'll still say, you know what, Mr. Jackson, are you okay if we search your vehicle? And see, this is a major mistake that people make. A lot of people think, you know what, what's the harm? I don't have anything. It's no big deal. It only take a few minutes, you know, and they just go ahead and give consent. But let me tell you the problem, though. Most of us, you know, especially us that, you know, we have family, or maybe we have teenage kids, or, you know, maybe one vehicle is being used by different people in the family. So, you know, we're not police officers. So every time somebody uses the car, we don't go and do a thorough check. We're not looking in between the seats, looking under the seats to make sure someone didn't leave something by accident. If we go in and give one of our buddies a ride, we're not checking behind them and doing a thorough search and all of that stuff. So you may be thinking, oh, well, you know, it's no big deal. I don't have anything. I'm good. I'll let the officer search and I'll be on my way. But you let the officer search, and the next thing you know, they looking with that flashlight. Oh, okay. What do we have here, Mr. Jackson? And you're like, what? What do you mean? What do you have here? You shouldn't have anything. Well, here's this. And they're holding something. It was a baggie that maybe dropped out of somebody else's pocket that you didn't know about, you know? And there you go. The other thing is this. Sometimes, although they ask for permission to search your car, cops have been known to just tear up your car too, trying to rifle through something, trying to find something. And most of the time, you're not going to be able to recoup any type of restitution for anything that they damage or tear up while they're searching your vehicle.
What, Corey? Corey, you mean to tell me they can tear up my vehicle and I can't sue them?
I am telling you that in 19 years, I have seen many people that have had their vehicles torn up. I've seen people that have had their homes, you know, destroyed. I'm talking about holes in the wall and everything else. Looking through things, thinking they're going to find some drugs or something like that. And it is very difficult because of the type of immunity that they have when they go about their business to really recoup. So you have to be very, very careful. But let me give everybody in the community the magic words to say and how to say it, and how to execute this play.
Please tell us this.
This is exactly what you say. And, you know, again, you be as polite as possible. Officer, I understand that you're just trying to do your job, but I do not consent to searches. That's all you got to say. I understand, you know, be empathetic. You know, I understand that you're just trying to do your job, but I don't consent to searches. And that's all you need to do. And you need to stop talking. You don't need to, you know, allow them to talk you into anything else or give you any reason. Because one of the things they'll say is, well, oh, okay, Mr. Jackson, well, we can do this the easy way, or we can do this the hard way. You know, and sometimes that'll get people. Oh, you know, I don't want any problems, whatever. You know, go ahead and search or whatever. But here's the thing. When you say that, you protected yourself several ways, you know, because when you say that, if they go ahead and search anyway, then again, that's something that your attorney at a later date. It's not for you to try to litigate it on the scene, and it's not for you to try to stop the officers. And God forbid, one of the things that you never want to do is put your hands on an officer. You don't touch an officer or anything like that, because then you're asking for real problems. But when you do that, what you've done is you've given your attorney at a later date something to work with, because then your attorney can go in court and argue on your behalf. Mr. Jackson stated very clearly to the officers that he did not consent to searches, and they searched anyway. And so, if that argument is successful in court, guess what? Anything that they have recovered is subject to be what we call suppressed or thrown out because it was gained illegally and they violated your rights. Of course, searches and seizures, they go under the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. And
Wow.
so you got to do that. But now, if you consent, all bets are off because you consented. You can go in there, and holler until the cows come home and say, well, they didn't have a reason to search anyway. It doesn't matter because you consented, Mr. Jackson.
Wow.
So you're subject to whatever they found, and it's all on you. We don't want to hear your excuses about you just dropped your buddy off. He was on hard times and he must have dropped it when he got out of the car. You're going to take that hit.
That's important to know. I put up there one of the person Takara Bumpers. She said she gave the exact quote that Corey just gave. Corey, you're giving some good information on how we can keep ourselves in the midst of a bad situation. Next thing is we wanted to get to the bankruptcy. What is some of the that's what one of the things that 90%, well, not about 60% of the people wanted to know. What do I deal with when it comes to bankruptcy? What is some of the things that I do? Because we have a lot of people out here that says, and I see it all the time in my line of work, a lot of people say, hey, I'm going to file bankruptcy and then I'm going to start over. And then some people don't even know what is some of the steps to file bankruptcy. And I've had people come to me and say, I thought I filed bankruptcy and I really didn't even file bankruptcy. So what do we got? What is the legal terminology and what does that mean?
Yeah, I didn't know we were going to cover this, but yeah, certainly I want to talk about it. And one of the things I want to say before even getting into the nuts and bolts about bankruptcy is, and I was trying to grab my phone to grab this scripture real quick.
Okay.
One of the things that I want to just help people with is that, first of all, understand that bankruptcy is something that was put in place by our forefathers, and it was put in place for our benefit because they realized that I know it's in Leviticus.
Okay, hold up, Corey. Hold that thought. When you get that, I'm going to say something right now. One of the things that me and Corey talked about when we're talking about bankruptcy, most people don't see bankruptcy as an opportunity of a second chance. Bankruptcy is a tool that our government in the United States has put into place to where it gives you a second chance and it gives you the opportunity to start over. We all need an opportunity to start over sometime. It might be for medical reasons. It might be because you were young and you made some mistakes. You might have tried to put your best foot forward and you didn't know how to do something. And then you I've seen people create businesses and put it all in their name. Then the business goes up and then they forgot that they could put it in the business name, but they put it all in their personal credit. And guess what? Now they got $300,000 in credit that they can't pay. Now they're getting garnished. They don't know where to start. They can't live. So bankruptcy is a viable option. Okay. I know a lot of people criticize previous presidents, but we had a president that filed bankruptcy on a lot of different businesses and we criticize them. But when you file bankruptcy and you do it properly, it is a great tool, not a good tool, but a great tool to use to start over again. But you got to have a plan. You can't just file bankruptcy, charge up the debt, and then say, I'm not paying the debt and then move forward. That's not how bankruptcy works, and that's not what it's for. It's to legally give you a second chance when you have made a mistake or you're in over your head in reference to finances. Our government was on the brink of filing bankruptcy. So you got to be careful when we're talking about that. So, Corey, I'll turn it back in the hands of you.
Man, I couldn't say it better. So here's the thing, though, and the reason why I wanted to find this scripture is because I know that, and I think you were sort of hitting on this a little bit, A lot of people have a lot of hangups when it comes to filing bankruptcy because they associate, there's a negative connotation associated with filing bankruptcy. A lot of people believe that, man, if I file bankruptcy, I'm a loser. Bankruptcy is something that's negative. One of the things, and I know you were mentioning about if you made a mistake or something like that, but one of the things we have to understand is that by and large, the majority of people that actually file for bankruptcy is just because life happens. There are a lot of what we call medical bankruptcies, which means that you might have a hardworking person. They're going to work every day, they're punching the clock. Due to no fault of their own, something happens to them and they have to have a lot of medical care. And we all know if you go to the hospital for 2 days, let alone if it has to be weeks or months, that bill runs up quickly. And if you don't have any insurance, any coverage, although you're working, that could pose a real problem. And so, in a very short period of time, you can have a debt ceiling that's way up there. And it's due to no fault of your own. Another scenario that happens all the time, you have a household where, maybe somebody's married and then, one person leaves or there's a divorce or something like that. And everything was buzzing along, everything was going really well as long as you had two incomes. But when that other income is lost, it creates an issue. It creates a serious issue, and the person just can't keep up. So, bankruptcy, as Cepeda mentioned, it's just a tool. It's just a vehicle. The same way you would hop in your car right now and put a destination in your GPS and say, "Hey, I want to go from my house to this place," and that car gets you there. That's all bankruptcy is. Bankruptcy is a vehicle that you use if you have a situation where you can't keep up with the bills, or for whatever reason, maybe you're unemployed for a short period of time and you need some help. And just like Cepeda said, it's very much there to give you a second chance. It's completely legal. And again, this was great wisdom that our forefathers had when they put this in place, because sometimes things just simply happen. Now, what I wanted to say about the Bible, though, and people don't understand it, because I know a lot of people feel like, hey, if I did the debt, then I need to pay it, and especially Christians and people that have certain beliefs, they're concerned about that. But here's what the Bible says in several places. Number one, in Proverbs 22:7, it says that the borrower is a slave to the lender. And then in Deuteronomy, oh no, I want to go to actually Deuteronomy 15:1 and 2. It says, at the end of every 7 years, you shall grant a release of debts. And this is the form of the release. Every creditor who has lent anything to his neighbor shall release it. He shall not require it to his neighbor or his brother, because it is called the Lord's release. Now, every 8 years, we can file a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. And what it does is it completely wipes out the obligation to pay most debts, not all. There are some things that will survive a bankruptcy, such as child support. If you have like restitution that is the result of maybe someone being injured because you were drunk and driving or something, or our taxes and that type of thing. But most things that most people have in the way of debt, such as personal loans, payday loans, broken leases, credit card debt, all of that stuff is subject to be discharged through bankruptcy. And here's the other thing that bankruptcy does. Bankruptcy allows you to legally call a timeout. And I'm talking about a timeout when someone has filed a lawsuit against you and they're about to garnish your wages, or even they're garnishing your wages. So if they're garnishing your wages and you're trying to take care of family, we all know, that could be very difficult to do. So what happens is, the moment that you file that bankruptcy and you get that bankruptcy case number, the court puts in place what's called an automatic stay. And what an automatic stay does is it tells the creditors, hey, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so have filed for bankruptcy protection. And from this point forward, if you filed a lawsuit, it's immediately stayed and you can't go forward with it. If you're garnishing wages, you immediately have to stop garnishing those wages. If you want to touch anything that belongs to these people, you can only do so after getting the permission of the U.S. Bankruptcy Court. And so you get immediate relief from situations with creditors. Now, there's two main sections of bankruptcy that most common folks will file. And then there are some other sections that businesses will file for reorganization and that type of thing. But for our purposes here tonight, we have a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which a lot of people will refer to as either a straight bankruptcy or liquidation. Now, Chapter 7 is for people that for one reason or another, they just simply can't meet and take care of their debts on a monthly basis. And so what happens is you would normally go see an attorney. They will do an analysis. They will look at what's called a means test, which talks about the average amount of income for a median household of a certain size. And they're able to actually make a determination on the spot as long as they have proper information and tell you, you know what, you qualify for a Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Now, Chapter 7 is called straight bankruptcy because in a period of 3.5 to 4 months, from start to finish, you can start it and you can get your clean slate as is on the screen there. And it wipes everything out, and you have a clean slate. You have a chance to start again. You have a second chance that you need. And so a lot of people like it because you can do it quickly. You're in and out in a relatively short period of time. And like I said, most debts are going to be wiped out.
Y'all hear that? Y'all hear that? The cavalry ain't coming. The creek and rose and the levee is giving way. Now we're giving y'all some practical tools that you can use. We talked to you about how you can deal with the police from an attorney standpoint. Now we're talking to you about legally what we can do in reference to your own personal credit in reference to your bankruptcy. If you have overestablished yourself, we can help you reestablish credit. Okay. Bankruptcy is a tool to where you can come back in and say, I'm starting over, stop the creditors from calling me. Here go my attorney. You can call Corey Scott. He can take care of you. That's why he's here, because I want to align our people with people in our community that look like us, act like us, talk like us, and you might even see Corey Scott in your store. So we want to make sure that we are very clear and deliberate about what we're doing. He just told us something very key. Chapter 7 bankruptcy is a clean slate, and you can do it every 8 years. So you can do it at if you were 24, 18, or if you were 20, you can do it again when you're 28. Okay? Gives you an opportunity to breathe. Call us here at Bad Capital. We can help you to reestablish credit. Okay? Because you filed a bankruptcy, your credit score is going to go down. You're going to take that hit, but this is a clean slate for you. Now we can help you get back on the right path. What's the other bankruptcy, Corey? That's what they are asking me now. We talked about Chapter 7. What's the other one that you mentioned? You said there's two of them.
There's Chapter 13. Before I get to Chapter 13, I do want to say something. As between a Chapter 7 and 13, you don't have to wait 8 years. So you can, if you need to file a Chapter 13, if you just come out of 7, you can file a 13. So Chapter 13 is what's sometimes called as, a payment plan or a high wage earners. This is for people that they have the financial means to take care of their debts and to meet their requirements. But for one reason or another, they got behind. It could be that someone was laid off for a short period of time. They got behind on the mortgage, and now the people are trying to, put their home up for a foreclosure sale or something like that. So these are people that they literally just need the time out. They need the bankruptcy court to say, wait a minute, I don't want to lose my home. I have the ability to meet my requirements, but I just simply can't pay whatever lump sum or whatever. So in a Chapter 13, what happens is you go to an attorney, you see someone, you tell them about your situation. Once they determine that you qualify for a Chapter 13, or some people are trying to do a 7 and they make too much money, they have too much going on, too many assets where they can't do a 7 and they have to do a 13. But what happens is they will put together what's called a payment plan. So over a period of years, what happens is you have a bankruptcy trustee, there's a payment plan, and the attorney will put together a plan to where you can start to pay back some things and get caught up on some things without the worry of like losing your home. That's the most common thing that people are trying to do with these Chapter 13 payment plans is, and I've literally, back in the day when we had to actually walk the papers to the courthouse, I mean, I've literally walked the stack of papers down and got the thing on file, and we had to rush right in to stop the foreclosure, the sheriff's sale as they call it, and then it stops it right there on the spot. And what happens though is it just gives you a chance to repay things, get caught up in an orderly fashion without the worry of creditors and that type of thing. And so what happens is, based upon your income and your debts and that type of thing, the length of your plan will be determined, and then you have to pay a certain amount or certain percentage. Some people have so much going on, and they can actually pay, they can end up paying everything, but certain other people, maybe you pay for 3 years and you pay a certain percentage, and then everything after that is discharged, and so that's the Chapter 13 plan in a nutshell. And I just want to touch upon one other thing that Cepeda said, is that he's very correct that really bankruptcy is really just the first step. Beyond bankruptcy, then you have to really make some decisions to do something different, because the idea and the goal is to only have to go the bankruptcy route once. Even now, before you can actually file, they make you go through an educational course that talks about budgeting and handling banking and that type of thing. They're trying to educate people. They're saying, we understand that you can do it every 8 years, but we don't want to see you every 8 years. We want you to get the education. We want you to get the lesson. And so you don't have to come back. The other thing I want to touch upon as well is, people are, as Cepeda said, people are concerned about taking the hit. Well, here's a news flash. If you have to file bankruptcy, your credit probably isn't all that great anyway. So you've already taken the hit. The other thing I want to say about this too is some people really believe that, man, if I file bankruptcy, then I'm not going to be able to get a home in the future. I'm not going to be able to get a car and get all these things anymore because I'm just completely ruined. I'm out of the game. And that's just simply not true. I will tell you this. It used to be, if you filed bankruptcy, it would take a long time for you to get yourself back and get reestablished and be able to do those things. But now today, there's different programs that are specifically set aside and set up for folks to it's almost immediately after you get out sometimes. You'll go to your mailbox and you got all types of offers. Now, you got to be worried of that, though, because what they're trying to do is, like the old mob guys who say, every time I get out, I'm almost out, they pull me back in. And so they're trying to pull you back in. So you got to be very, very circumspect and think about what you're doing. But the point is, you don't have to wait 10 years. You don't have to wait 7 years and anything like that. If you take the right steps, if you go see Cepeda, if you go see someone that knows about rebuilding, they can tell you certain things you can do. There's certain secured cards that you can get a small debt, make sure you paying that thing on time over a number of years, and you can get yourself reestablished. There's other things that you can do. If you have relatives that have really good credit, they can maybe agree to allow your name to go on an account. And as they're continuing to handle their thing credit-wise, they go up, but your name starts to go up as well. And, these are just a couple of things,
So he's hitting on a couple of things in my line of work. I'm in the mortgage business, right? He's telling you, and it is correct. You can be out of bankruptcy one day and you can have a good credit score. There's something called a secure credit card. We have a relationship with banks. Number one thing is, if you're faithful over the few things, the bank can let you give you money over many. So that's a basic principle that the banks live by. They want you to show that you're faithful. So when we're talking about bankruptcy, I see a lot of people that want to file bankruptcy over $2,000 or $3,000 or $5,000. They bought a car, the car depreciated. They want to file bankruptcy because they don't want to be garnished. There's other ways on how you can get it. Rule of thumb is this. when you get ready to file bankruptcy, you want to have enough debt to file the bankruptcy for. Okay, you don't want to file it over $2,000 or $3,000. You want to have enough debt out there to where it's worth you doing it. Secondly, there are, like he said, you can still buy a house if you file bankruptcy. They want you to be out of the bankruptcy, and then what that means, either you're going through a payment plan and they want you current, and they can use that as a tool to show that you made good payments every month. That is a tool. Pay by cashier's check, or pay by credit card, or pay by debit card. Those are track records to show that you've made those payments. Another thing that you can do in the mortgage business, or you're trying to buy a car, don't go out and purchase a big item, a big ticket item. Don't go out and expend more than 30% of your income. I see that a lot. People have $60,000, $70,000 in debt, payments $8,000 a month almost, and they know they can't afford it. But then we see them going on vacation, or we see them don't change your habit. In the middle of a bankruptcy, you have to change your habits. And so a lot of times it's called keeping up with the Joneses. So many times I see our people, we want to keep up with the Joneses, but you got to realize that the Joneses been sacrificing for the past 10 years. For so long, people made fun of me, Corey, because I don't have a lot of debt, right? And so people laugh at me because, I was talking to my mentor a couple of days ago, and he told me this, and it kind of stuck with me. He said, Cepeda, a lot of times people have a Ferrari with no engine, no wheels, but they got a Ferrari, but they don't want to have they don't want to drive back and forth to work in a Nissan Maximum that's 4 years old. But they got a Ferrari that can't go nowhere with no engine, but they don't want a Nissan that they can get them to where they want to go.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something else though, Cepeda, and this hits like right in line with what you do as far as mortgages. Here's the real crazy thing. You will have people that have a Lambo or a Ferrari or the high end Benz, but you driving the thing and then you parking it in an apartment parking lot. You don't even have a garage to put the thing in. So if we got a bad storm, the thing is out there, it's exposed to the elements. I mean, just from a practical standpoint, I mean, certainly we can't tell you what to do with your money, but just think about it though. If you got that type of car, but you don't have a mortgage and you don't have a carport, you just parking it in some apartment complex. I mean, make it make sense. I mean, just from a practical standpoint, I mean, we just really got to keep priorities in mind, as we do things and as we move about it.
We're telling the people, the Calvary's not coming, ladies and gentlemen. The creek then rose and the levee is giving way. It's up to us to save us. And this is one of the hard conversations that we got to have with our community. So many times I see, even when you starting to get involved with other relationships with the spouse and considering other people to marry and attaching yourself to different things, you got to understand that debt becomes one. You need to be concerned about that. I've seen people in my line of work, I've seen people die because of stress, because they stressed out because they can't afford that mortgage payment or the debt that they have out there. There's different tools out there, but once you get those tools, one of the things that you can live by is live off of 30% of your income. If you can, at all possible, live off of 30% of income, and then 70% you can do the other things with. Sometimes the Joneses are living off of 30%. The Joneses are living off of 30%, but you're living off of 90%. So if those are the things, and there's all type of YouTube people out here that's telling you that you can get rich quick and all of those type of things, Corey. But at the end of the day, the Calvary ain't coming.
Yeah.
The creek then rose and the levee has given way. It's up to us to save us. Sometimes it's not good that you go on that vacation. Sometimes it's not good that you buy that Gucci. Sometimes it's not good that you go to that club. Sometimes it's good that you just stay home and save for a minute. A lot of times, Corey, and I can testify to this myself. We have a class that's coming up this weekend talking about credit making money for you. If you got good credit, that's the door to unlocking a lot of different things for you personally. you can make it happen. Sometimes it's just that knee-jerk reaction, Corey. If we just get over that knee-jerk reaction of that immediate satisfaction, we can get to where we really want to be. Bankruptcy is a tool that we have. Corey, I'm ready to get to some of the questions. I'm ready to shoot you some bullets, okay?
Okay, absolutely.
Okay. They're asking me the question, what about contracts? Is contracts important in our community in reference to dealing with generational wealth? Why are we afraid of contracts?
Well, I mean, we certainly shouldn't be afraid of contracts, because contracts, when they're done right in the proper context, they actually protect us, because what you got to understand is that if something goes wrong legally with some type of deal, some agreement, some partnership, etc., it is very difficult unless you have it in black and white. If you're trying to enforce your rights, or you're trying to say that, hey, we agreed upon this, but we did it over a gentleman's handshake and all that stuff, that is not going to fly in a court of law. So, I mean, contracts are very important, because there's a term in the legal circles. They said it's based upon the four corners of the document. That's what the courts will look to. You can go in there all day, and you're talking about this or that, and you're telling the person, you can be telling the truth. But the first thing the judge wants to know is, where is the contract, and what does the contract say? Because the contract is very, very important. Let me tell you something else too. It's very important who you have draft up a contract. Because
no legal Zoom, no legal Zoom.
I haven't seen their contracts, but what I'm saying though is, when it comes to a court making a decision about a contract, the court will hold it against the person that actually had the power of the pen. In other words, the person that actually drafted that contract, if there's some type of ambiguity, or there's some type of confusion or something like that, that's going to be construed against the person that had the power of the pen and wrote it up. So if you're going to have somebody draw up something that's an important transaction, make sure that everything is game tight with that, because you don't want to have it be a situation to where you thought you were doing the right thing, but then you get in there and come to find out that the contract has a bunch of loopholes in it. The contract's not very clear. And then the judge is going to hold you accountable because you didn't have someone do a good job for you.
Wow.
So contracts are crucial.
Contracts are crucial. I got another one. We're starting up a business. What are some of the most important legal things we need to know?
Well, and I know Cepeda can tell you this, but, one of the most important things, number one, is what we were just talking about. But you certainly want to find out and make sure that you go to someone that can tell you what type of legal entity that you need. To Cepeda's point earlier, where he said that, hey, folks want to go in business, but you got the thing under your personal name, everything's under your name. So what that means is, if something goes wrong, they come knocking on your door, saying, hey, you know what, you owe this. And you say, well, wait a minute, though, this is a business, but not according to the Secretary of State. Your business is not in the proper order. So you want to find out what it means to have an LLC, a limited liability corporation. You want to find out what it means to have a professional corporation, etc. Because what it does is, it takes, although you are in charge of the thing, you own it, you're the founder, you're the CEO, what it does is it separates the business entity from your personal entity, meaning that if something happens, they need to go and see and try to file and see if they can, file against the LLC, but not you personally. So it just protects you. Okay. I mean, that's one of the biggest things that you have to do, is you have to know how to get the thing started.
Because wow. So did y'all catch what he said? Did y'all catch what he said? I want to be clear, because he's giving us some nuggets. He's given us the blueprint on how to create and establish generational wealth in our own community. He's saying, one, make sure that when we're starting these businesses, don't go to Rocket Zoom, Legal Zoom. Go and find Corey Scott and get your stuff done properly. Okay. He even said, without promoting himself, I'm going to promote him. He said, come to him, because the pen is who the judge is going to have accountable. It's a lot easier that if you're going to pay $59 to start a business, that lets you know that you're not very serious about your business. I've always always called an attorney to get my business set up. Always, 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 always. One is because if I ever got in trouble, I can always call my attorney and say, hey, you set this up, you deal with it. Because guess what? That's what his line of work is. In our community, we think that we're the professionals, and yes, it is your business, but that's not your profession. You got to hire people that do what they're hired to do. Corey is trained. He spent over 8 years in law to talk about, I'm sure there was sections in there that was talking about business law. And I'm not a professional in business law. Corey is. And so let the professionals do what they do. Okay, that's the biggest thing in our community. Let the professionals do what they do. I'm not a brain surgeon, so I'm not going to work on my head. I'm not a brain surgeon. Corey is a surgeon when it comes to contracts. It amazes me, Corey, on when you talk to certain people, they think that because they didn't went onto a YouTube video that they can come in and now they're experts. Right?
Yeah. That was what I was thinking about as you were talking about LegalZoom, is that, because we have access to, information, and we can almost Google anything. It's true. You can Google, you can go to, one of these business stores or something like that, Staples or something like that, and they may have some form contracts, but, going to do something like that or getting on Google is not the same as someone that's a trained professional asking you the right questions.
Wow. Did y'all catch that? Hold on, Corey. Did y'all catch that?
Asking the right questions.
That's it. Did y'all catch that? Asking the right questions is what you're paying for when you get an attorney. When you go to LegalZoom, you might call that 1-800 number, but they're not trained professionals. Corey is a trained professional. An attorney is a trained professional in your environment, in your area, that can answer the question the way that you might be wanting to answer it. So make sure that you hire a professional that you can ask the right questions. A lot of times that's the difference between generational wealth and a generation where you don't have nothing. People go to court all the time because they got a prenup, they didn't get a prenup, and they should have got a prenup or whatever. Guess what? Now they're in court. Look at what happened. They're in court now. Now, there's a lot of things that's going on. Corey, I've got about 2 more questions I want to ask you, and I appreciate you coming in. In reference to marriage, is it good to get a prenup? When should you get a prenup? Should you get an attorney to do that? Hey, that's one of the hard questions in our community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, you certainly should get an attorney to do it if you're going to do it. In terms of when to do it, you certainly want to do it before you get the license and you say I do, and you jumping over the broom and all the stuff that people do. So yeah, you want to do that. You want to have that sit down with your fiance or whatever, and maybe explain it out and whatever you need to do. But then after you do that and you get their license and you get their agreement, then you need to go and sit down with a professional that can really, ask the right questions, probing questions about what it is that exactly you're trying to protect, what your intentions are, and that type of thing. And then they can put you together, a document that's going to stand the test of time and something that's going to, stand up in court at a later date. We've all seen it to where even people that, they did the right thing and they took the next steps. It doesn't mean that people still won't take you to court to see whether or not the thing is going to hold up. Especially when you're talking about somebody that's pissed off and they're mad, they're liable to do anything. So, I mean, while the sun is still shining and everything is good and you feel like you just can't do without this person, you can't breathe and take the next breath without them, you want to save, or you want to deal with that situation that might come at a later date to where y'all can't stand to be in the same room together. Because I've seen that type of situation to where, things are so bad. You're like, man, these people have been together for X amount of years and created all these kids. They can't stand each other. So, while everything is good, you want to have that sit down, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Get that done, do things right, and start your foundation right. And hopefully, prayerfully, you'll never need it. But just in case you need it, you'll have it.
Okay. Next question. I'm going through the questions. Okay. Oh my goodness. Here we go. So they want to talk about what is about. They want to know, how do we deal with child support? What are some of the things child support? What is the law in reference to that?
Well, with child support, let me just tell you the first thing that one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen people make. And I understand it from a certain standpoint, but on another level, I mean, this is just people that's being too cavalier and nonchalant about the law and their obligations. So here's the deal. I mean, this is something that's very important, especially if I have parents that have teenagers or people that might be in serious relationships where someone may become pregnant or something like that. One of the things that you want to do for sure, and I'm talking primarily right now to young men in particular, I've seen situations time and time and time again to where, and this is what gets people hung up. They want to have their name on the birth certificate. They want the baby to have their name. And that's all fine and well. I know you want the baby to have your name, but what if the baby isn't yours? What if after the baby has your name and you signed off on an affidavit at the hospital, at a later date you find out that it's not even your baby? Guess what? According to the law, they don't care whether or not the baby is yours or not. You're on the hook for 18 years of child support. So this is what I tell people all the time. You can always go back and get your name on a birth certificate. Now, that's very easy to do when you guys first go to court or whatever. But you don't want to sign off on that paternity affidavit, because once you sign on the dotted line, that gives that child all of the rights in terms of if something happens to you, and it locks you in as being the father. Because as far as the law is concerned, the moment you do that, you are the father, and we don't want to see your test that you got from home, and you stuck the thing in the baby's mouth, and it turns out the baby's not yours. That's not going to hold up in court. It's not going to work. But let me tell you this as well: if for some reason you signed off on it, please understand that you only have 60 days from the date that you sign to actually go into the court and say, you know what, I want a legal paternity test to determine whether or not this baby's mine. Because we've had courts that say, you know what, we understand that. We understand, Mr. Jackson, but as far as we're concerned, you signed on the line, you're the legal father, and that's just the way it's going to be. So
Wow.
that's number one. And I think that's very important. So please make a note of that, and pass that along.
Okay, so you hearing it from straight from the attorney. I know, brothers. I know we like to put Junior on the back of our last name, but make sure that not just to get a blood test, but you want to make sure that you're protected. Not just for that point of time. Not saying that you didn't want to be with that woman, but guess what? You want to make sure that everything that you're doing is correct. Okay, and just making sure that you're covered. Just child support is very serious. Can they take you to court for that? Can they suspend your license? Can they
Yeah.
how long do you serve in jail for missing? Do you get one strike, two strikes, 10
They can do
strikes?
all. Yeah, they can do all of that. So let me just break some of this down. So, um, so they
Wow.
can, but let me just talk, and I promise, ladies, this is not pro father, pro male, but I'm just simply, these scenarios are scenarios that I've seen that primarily have sort of played out, sometimes to the detriment of fathers. But one of the things that happens is they can take you to court. Normally, what they would do is they would go to the local prosecutor's office, and they have what's called a Title 4D prosecutor that will file an affidavit or file something to get the case started. And then, of course, they will summons the father and then bring the father down to the courthouse. So what happens is this: at least in Marion County, you come down, the mother's there, whatever, and there's a prosecutor there. And they'll take you to this little room, and everybody's in the room. They got the calculator, and they'll get information about you guys as far as what you make, where you work, and all of that stuff. And so what happens a lot of times is they will just simply take, the mother's word about what it is they do or what they pay for childcare and that type of thing. And sometimes they'll take yours too, but sometimes they'll have you bring down documentation. But here's what you got to understand as far as child support is concerned. It's very important how you get started with this, because if you go down there by yourself, you don't have representation. You can go down there and try to get things done quickly and save a little money on the front end, but you can walk out of there with a very lopsided child support obligation that doesn't take into account everything that it should. And so let me give you an example. So if you have an attorney and they're bringing you down there, that attorney can file what's called a discovery request, which will have the mother have to produce documentation as far as if they're trying to get medical bills that were associated with the birth paid.
Okay,
If
Corey,
they're trying to get
one more thing.
that type
One
of
thing,
thing
Corey.
paid.
One thing, Corey. Not just mothers, but it could be the mother getting custody of the kids, and she has to pay child support. I've seen it both ways. So it's not just the male, but it's also go for females also.
It does. That's a very good point, and that's one of the points I wanted to make when I was saying that this is not just father centric. So yeah, I mean, so the same thing goes for if the father has the child. But so the number one is you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row when it gets started. After the order is in place, though, one of the things that you want to do, and I've seen people make this mistake, mothers and fathers both, is sometimes let's just say that you have an order and something happens and then you can't really keep up with the order anymore. And so you just keep the order. But because you can't pay everything, you just say, well, if I can't pay the whole thing, I'm not going to pay anything. That's a big mistake. So what you want to do in a situation like that is you don't just stop paying. If you can't pay the full $100, but you can pay $50, pay the 50. Get that on the books, because you want to at least be able to say, if you're hardened to the court, to Cepeda's point about throwing you in jail, at the very least you can say, you know what, I did the best that I could. I mean, I couldn't pay it all, Your Honor, but I did the best that I could. The other thing too is, don't just let a big child support arrearage stack up on you. If your circumstances have changed, you're entitled every year to file what's called, a request for modification of support, where they bring the parties back to court, and then we take another look at your incomes and your ability to pay in that type of thing. And if things have changed, then they can adjust your child support obligation. So you're no longer trying to pay something that you can't pay, and you're not falling farther and farther behind every week. So that's a very important thing to do as well when it comes to child support. Now, to his point, they can pull professional licenses. It can get so bad that they can say, you know what, the next time you come in front of me, if you're not caught up, you're going to jail. And what happens is you go to jail and the judge puts in place what's called a purge bond. Purge bond means that, the amount that you're behind, the judge can, say, you know what, you need to pay this whole thing, or you need to pay a lump sum in order to get yourself out. And once you pay that, that money goes directly to the mother for child support, or to the father for child support. The other thing is this: it can get so bad that the state of Indiana can also bring criminal charges against you, felony criminal charges for non-payment of child support as well. So just keep that in mind.
Wow. So y'all catch what we're saying. We're talking about generational wealth. Don't get on the wrong track. Okay? Don't get on the wrong track. He's telling us how to get out of these pitfalls that's in our community that we talk about, but it's taboo. Last question, Corey. I had a good question. I had an individual that was in my office today. They have a son in our prison system. What is some of our rights in our prison system if you have an individual that was, we feel like he was mismanaged, hurt himself? What is some of our rights as family members on the outside trying to get in? What can we do then?
Well, as a prisoner, one of the things is that, we have a constitutional right that talks about you have a right to be free from what's called cruel and unusual punishment and that type of thing. And that extends inside the prisons. Just because somebody goes to prison and they're evicted, it doesn't mean that a person is not deserving of good care. I mean, the bottom line is, if the Department of Corrections has custody of you, they have an obligation, a legal obligation, to make sure that they meet your needs. And that can be, medical wise, that can be that you have proper nutrition and that type of thing. That can be that if you need psychological help or something like that. When they take you in, they're obligated to do all those things. And so if they're not doing those things, of course, there is an internal system within the prison system to where they can, make certain what they call grievances and that type of thing, and see someone on the inside to correct that. If they don't correct it there, and your person, your loved one is being mismanaged, then that is a situation as well where you can, get legal help to where, something can be filed with the court to address those issues, whether it be a lawsuit or whatever the situation may be. But
Okay.
that's certainly possible.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have covered a whole lot. We talked about bankruptcy. We talked about, what it means when you get pulled over. Corey, we got to have you back. Okay. We got to get you back on here. Our time is up, but like I've tried to do, the cavalry ain't coming, Corey. The Creekton Rose, ladies and gentlemen, the cavalry then came, Creekton Rose, levy giving way. It's up to us to save us. We got to have these conversations if we're going to be whole in our community. We talked about marriage. We talked about prenups. When you're thinking about getting married to that apple of your eye, and they got this debt, guess what? You buying into that. It's not a bad thing to talk about it. Let's just talk about it. So it's no surprises. We also talked about if the police pull you over, guess what? Put your hands on the front. Okay, stay calm and ask that perfect question. Hey, can I go get my registration? Hopefully that saves somebody from dying. Then the last thing he said, hey, do not by any means let them search your car and give them permission. If they ask you, can you search? Say, hey, I just don't do that, please. That's what you want to do now. If they do it and override you, just get you an attorney, say what happened. Okay, hopefully somebody's taking a picture on the video. But now we have somebody who's legally, Corey is very competent. He talked about the whole thing. I pushed him to no end. I pushed my fraternity brother to no end today. He handled his business. If you are looking for an attorney, call Corey Scott. Corey, what's your telephone number so I can put it on our system? What is your telephone number?
It is 317.
Okay.
634 0101.
Okay, y'all got that? 317. What is it, Corey, now? Okay, hold on here. Let me edit this. Okay, hold on here. 317
634 0101.
Okay, so we're going to scroll it down here at the bottom. So, brothers and sisters, y'all got Corey's number. Okay, y'all got his number. Corey, we thank you for coming in and covering all of the topics today. We talk, it might not have been popular when we was talking about child support, when we was talking about bankruptcy. We definitely wasn't popular when we were talking about when you're ready to get married, signing a prenup. But hey, we want to make sure that our community is whole. Okay, we want to make sure that when the cavalry do come, we're ready. Okay, because we've been told that the cavalry ain't coming. The Creekton Rose, Corey, and the cavalry ain't coming. If the levy is giving way, it ain't nobody else gonna save us. We got somebody on the inside that knows the legal system. Call Corey Scott. If you got child support, if you're thinking about getting married, and you got your wife or your husband have debt, call somebody who knows how to handle it. If you got some tickets that you need to get resolved, call Corey Scott.
Mm-hmm.
If you file bankruptcy, call Corey before you call me. Call Corey, get the bankruptcy done. Call me, hey, Mr. Jackson, I need to reestablish the credit and I want to buy a home. Call me up. I can help. Okay. Corey, do you want to have any parting words for us today?
No, just give me a call. If it's not something that I cover, I have a whole lot of friends in this business that I can point you to. I got a very large Rolodex, so I'd be more than happy to get you to the right person. And the only other thing I would say is a good friend of mine, a frat brother of mine, he always says his signature calling card is always bet on yourself. Always bet on yourself.
Bet
So
on
the help
yourself.
that you need, the hand that you need, is at the end of your arm. It's your own hand. So guys, just be wise, be prudent, be thoughtful, and start to get a copy of this United States Constitution. Spend some time, just get on there and Google your rights and that type of thing. And at least it's a starting point. It's something. But one of the things I just want to say is that it amazes me that people don't know the things that we have to know. I mean, we can know, we know LeBron's stats, we know Jay-Z's latest lyrics, we know what Beyonce sings back and forth, and what she wears to the award shows. But sometimes we don't know the things that are mission critical. And guys, it's if you look like us, it's not a matter of if you get stopped or if these things happen. It's just a matter of when. Okay. And so when it happens, you want to be prepared. But as Cepeda says, always bet on yourself.
Bet on
Bless
yourself,
you.
brothers and sisters. Bet on yourself. The Calvary ain't coming. And I'm here to tell you, the creek and rose and the levee is giving way. It's up to you to save you. You got to get in the game. You got to take control. You have to get involved. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you no lie. You have to bet on yourself. What is that person in the mirror saying? Thank you, Corey, for coming out. Thank you, Frat. Go Mob Frat.
That's right. Go Mob.
Go Mob Frat. Thank you,
Yes,
thank you. Those who came out, those who support. If you have any questions for Corey on a serious note, instant message me. I will get Corey on the line. I will point you in the right direction. Next week, it's imperative that you guys be on here next week. We're going to be talking about education. Our education system is failing our kids in the worst way. And next week, we're going to have a doctor on here. We're going to have 2 doctors on here. Then they're going to be talking about what we should be teaching our kids. Then they're going to talk about how important education is. So this coming Saturday, giving a shout out this coming Saturday. If you are looking to buy a home, if you're trying to establish credit, if you want credit, if you got good credit, want to get lines of credit to start a business, we are going to be in full force this coming Saturday. Go on to my Facebook page. You will be able to find out exactly where we're having it. It's only $100. If you don't have the $100, inbox me. I'll work with you, but it's only $100. We want to make sure that everybody that's following us on Facebook have access to capital. Okay, we want to make sure that you have access to the things that you need in order to be beneficial and to be successful in this financial world. If you are looking to get a loan, now is the time. It's not next year, not next week, it's not next month, it's not when the interest rates are going to start creeping up, and we need to take advantage of this. This weekend, we're going to be talking from 2 to 4. We're going to be talking about how we can increase and get money from our credit. If you have good credit, we can make that work for you. If you're trying to establish credit and want to get credit from the banks, we can set you up to where you can get the credit that you need. So we want to make sure that you have all the opportunities that you need in order to establish generational wealth for you and your family and your family's kids. So this coming Saturday, DM me, inbox me, Power of Credit. We're going to be in full force, 9100 Keystone and the Crossing from 2 to 4. We're going to be there. We're going to be teaching you on how to use your credit to benefit you and to get access to cash. The interest rates at an all-time low. Let us get in the game. Let us take advantage of it. Let us make sure that we're taking advantage of this opportunity. I have access to some banks that will lend you money if you get a certain type of score. If you're trying to start a business and you need funding for your business, this is the place where you need to be. It's up to you now. Okay, the Calvary ain't coming. The creek and rose. The levee is giving way, brothers and sisters. It's up to you to save you. So without any further ado, thank you for letting me come into your home today. Thank you for allowing me to come in and for this hour. Sorry we went over a little bit, but hopefully you gained something from this today. Corey brought in a whole lot of points. We covered a whole lot of things. We're going to bring him back, but the Calvary ain't coming. The creek is rose. The levee is giving way. Don't be tricked or hoodwinked into thinking that there's an easy way out. There is no easy way out. Bet on yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time that you bet on yourself. Don't take my word for it. Don't take that guy that's talking about generational wealth for it. Look at the person in the mirror. You have all the keys. You have the car. You have everything that you need in order to be successful. The Calvary ain't coming. The creek and rose. The levee is given away. It's up to you to save you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing me to come into your house one more time. Next week, we're going to be talking about education. Education is the key to us getting out of this rat race. You got to know what they're teaching your kids. You got to know what education is. You got to know what you need to teach yourself. Next week, don't want to miss it. Get your kids here. We're going to talk about education next week. Till next week, bet on yourself. And remember, the Calvary ain't coming. The creek and rose and the levee has given way. It's up to you to save you. Till next time, keep betting on yourself. Mad Capital Investment Group. Thank you.